Well, the UN Security Council will hold an urgent meeting Wednesday over Iran's growing nuclear stockpile. President Trump drawing a red line with Iran, telling the regime not to pursue a nuclear weapon or it'll face military action. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke reports on Iran's mixed response.
President Trump said last week that he'd written Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei urging negotiations on a new nuclear deal with Washington. Saturday, Khamenei initially rejected the offer, claiming Trump would just be looking to exert dominance and impose new demands. Now the regime says talks are back on the table. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman maintains a letter from President Trump never made it to leadership. He adds that negotiations will be considered as long as talks stick to concerns about the militarization of its nuclear program. While Iran's messaging appears unclear, in an interview with Fox News, President Trump says the regime is running out of time.
The time is happening now. The time is coming up. Something's going to happen one way or the other.
Former State Department advisor Gabriel Noronha, now with Polaris National Security, says the regime isn't in a position to ignore the offer of diplomacy.
Their proxies in Iraq are starting to show signs of weakening. Syria is gone. Hezbollah is decimated. Hamas is decimated. And they have the Houthis left as now their strongest proxy. This is not an Iran that is able to carry out the massive destructive threats against Israel and the United States that there were when President Trump was in office the first time.
Noronha says military action could make things tenuous for Iran because the regime doesn't have much else to lose.
I think what the regime fears the most is that the regime, without that nuclear safety net, would be on the verge of collapse. And that if the Israel and the United States are striking its programs, that the Iranian people would rise up. And so they're going to be prepared to do absolutely anything in their power to respond in the event of an attack.
According to the latest report from the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran's enriched uranium is up to 60% purity near weapons grade, and it could have enough for as many as 6 bombs. The agency now warns the situation is of serious concern and time for diplomacy is running out.
President Trump, as well as all of his predecessors, have said they will not permit Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Iran is on the threshold now, really on the threshold of a nuclear weapon. And so the implicit threat is that military force is the alternative if Iran is not willing to come to the table and resolve this peacefully.
Iran, China, and Russia kicked off annual joint military exercises Monday in the Gulf of Oman. Despite this growing partnership, Noronha says while it's something to watch, he doesn't believe China and Russia would provide much support if the U.S. takes military action on Iran. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Caitlin. Gordon, back to you.
Well, this is a very serious situation, and when you look at Iran's energy resources, for them to develop that many nuclear sites and claim to the world, we're doing it so that we can have nuclear energy, you've got to be kidding. The whole purpose of that nuclear program is to develop a nuclear weapon. It's been on the table for decades now, and we already know the first thing they'll do with that weapon is fire it against Tel Aviv. This is an existential threat to Israel. It's an existential threat to peace. They are the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Whether it's Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis or what's going on in Iraq, and what's currently going on in Syria, all of these things, the money trail goes back to Iran and Qatar. And when you look at it that way, what do you think they're going to do if they acquire these kinds of weapons? Well, they're absolutely going to use them, and they want to be the dominant power in the Middle East. That's quite clear. And will that happen on our watch? We've taken it back to the Bush administration and then the Obama administration, and Trump came very close to war with Iran during his first administration. And now he's saying, I'm drawing a line, and we'll see what they do. My whole issue with them coming to a negotiation table is, can we trust them? And I think the answer quite clearly is, no, we can't.
Are miracles real? Let's investigate.
A lot of skeptics will say, well, miracles are impossible. Why? Because they violate the laws of nature. You can't violate the laws of nature.
I looked at my hand that was clutched. I said, hand move.
We got the 20, 125.
Hallelujah!
Been totally blind. He's dead. It's over. I said, shock him one more time.